On Radio 97, this is Talking Law. Imagine having your own personal lawyer able to answer your questions. Well, that's exactly what Despina will do for you here. If you have a legal question of any sort, please drop us a line. Go to the website, which is radio97.com.au, and just at the bottom of the page there, you'll find a couple of ways to send your questions through. Do that, and Despina, happy to answer them for you on the radio. So just go to radio97.com.au, scroll down to the bottom of the page and follow the links there. Send us some questions for Despina to answer.
Easy peasy. Alrighty, so we're going to continue the conversation in regards to buying a business. Despina's broke down leases, staff, GST, but there's still so much more to unpack in a short space of time, so we're going to try our best. So first up, Despina will discuss licenses, because that's a big beast, isn't it?
It is. So particularly in the hospitality industry where you're buying businesses that are selling food and perhaps alcohol. So one of the big things that people miss is, of course, does that business, restaurant, cafe, etc., whatever it is, do they actually have a food license and or a liquor license? Now, you can't always assume that people are operating and trading within the law. Okay, so that's a big no-no, and this is part of your investigations and your due diligence and inquiries that need to be made. Obviously, a very good vendor and owner would give you a copy of their licenses up front, which they should be doing. Mm-hmm. And if it's through a business broker, they also should be giving you a copy of the current food license, and if they're selling alcohol, the current liquor license. Now, obviously, when you take over at settlement, you can't operate under the owner's licenses. Okay, so you have to actually go and get your own licenses. Mm-hmm. So the food license needs to be applied for, and the liquor license. So if they're already in existence for a business that's existing and that you're buying, you can do what we call, what's generally known as a transfer of those licenses to the new owner. But you need to start those applications pretty quick, because they do take quite a few weeks to actually come through, and particularly with liquor licensing, it could take up to 6 to 8 weeks to actually get your liquor license, because part of that process is that the liquor licensing division conducts searches on each of the buyers, I should say, and conducts an Australian Federal Police check search on them. So that takes quite a few weeks to come back.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit to know. And with liquor licensing, it's quite interesting. There's a little bit of a tip, if I could call it, that obviously when you take over a business and you settle on that settlement date, if you don't have those licenses in place, particularly talking about liquor license, you should always have your food license in place, because you can't serve food. But if you don't have your liquor license in place, you can obviously still operate and serve food, but you can't serve alcohol. Otherwise, you are up for some big hefty fines and you're breaking the law. But what you can do, it's a little tip or trick, if I could call it, is that on the actual day of settlement, so the minute you settle, the minute the monies are transferred and settlement is agreed that it's occurred, your lawyer can then jump on and obtain what's called an interim liquor license. And the interim liquor license is issued within pretty much 2 business days. So it's a massive advantage. So say if you settled, particularly with restaurants is a big one. I've done a number of these. If you settle, you want to try and settle earlier in the week when the trading's not that busy. So say if you settle on a Monday or Tuesday, you know that you'll lodge your interim liquor license on that morning, and say you'll get it by 2 days later. Yeah. So then you'll be right for the weekend trading. These are just practical issues that we know because we deal with it every day of the week. But if you'd settled on a Friday and you don't have your liquor license in, you pretty much will lose that trading on that weekend, because you can't, sell alcohol without a license.
Yep. No espresso martinis on a Saturday night. Not allowed. Okay, cool. So that's a good little tip. And is that fairly easy to apply for that interim type of license?
Oh, it's not an easy application. I mean, if someone jumps on and tries to do it themselves, there's lots of things you wouldn't know what to answer, what's relevant, what isn't, and there's always fees payable as well. So you need to get your lawyer to do that. And as I said, you do it pretty much once you're under contract. There's no reason not to, other than if you don't want to pay the application fee. But then if you wait until you're unconditional, you're sort of lost quite a bit of time. So you should do it as minute you go under contract. So that's a very big one. Now, the other big thing we want to talk about is your plant and equipment in your business that you're buying, and trading names. So these are 2 very important issues if we can try and cover it off in the time that we've got left. And as always, people can always reach out to me after the show if they need some more information. But when you're buying a business, you've got plant and equipment in that business. And it's very important to find out, is it plant and equipment that's owned by the owner, or is it leased?
Mm-hmm.
And often things like coffee machines and other plant and equipment that's used, for example, in a cafe or a restaurant, they're often leased. So then you have to find out, okay, what are the leasing contracts? We need to get copies of those. What are the terms of those leasing agreements? And of course, very important is payout figures. So if you're planning to take over a business, what's involved for the vendor to pay out what's owing. And the other big important thing is those companies that do lease the equipment to businesses, as I said, most businesses have leased equipment, they will have taken security interest registered on those equipment. So then we do searches on the PPSR, which is the National Securities Register for personal property securities, and we find out if they have interests that are registered which need to be removed at settlement. You don't want to own a business that has all this plant and equipment that's actually got security interest that are registered where the owner still owes money.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it sounds like, oh, yes, this all sounds logical, but many people don't know about this and they don't look after buyers very well because they don't have the experience.
So just briefly, Despina, obviously you have plenty of experience in this area. Have you ever come across a business with so many warning signs, so many red flags that have come up that perhaps you've recommended to your client, maybe you should look elsewhere?
I have a few occasions, and particularly one recently where our client was buying a business, and it wasn't something to sneeze at. It was, quite a lot of money for a business that was between Gold Coast and Brisbane. It trades in that area, and this particular business, the business itself may not be a dubious business, but the problem that we've encountered is that their representation is very poor. So there's a lot of mixed information coming through so far. We haven't signed a contract, we haven't finalized negotiations because we're still stuck on things like what is the registered business name you are selling? Because that's very important.
Yeah,
some people will buy a business
name.
because they want to take it over and not rebrand, but they're buying that business with that business name because it's got a lot of goodwill.
Yep.
Of course. Yeah, good
Right,
reputation.
really important. So what's the registered business name, who is selling or who owns it to then sell it? So we had a contract given to us where everything didn't match up. It was the wrong ABN. So there was one ABN of the actual owner. There was a different ABN to the registered business name. And then there was another ABN that we found that actually, so a different entity under a different ABN that owned the plant and equipment that they said was owned by the other vendor, or the vendor with a different ABN.
Messy,
So if you weren't, on the ball,
Yeah.
yes, thank you, Wayne. If you weren't on the ball, if that was missed, all that money could be transferred over. You're like, woo, I've got myself a business. When in reality, you might have bought a different ABN for a different trading name.
Exactly.
Oh my
and I want to make
gosh.
the point here because, it's really important because clients often come to us and they've already, in their mind, done the deal, right? And when they come to us, they say, okay, quick, let's go. We're going to sign a contract. I just want you to look over this really quickly and then let's do it. Now,
No.
okay, this happens a lot.
It's crazy.
Don't do it. Yeah.
It's just
I
funny.
know,
yeah.
and I have to bring the clients back to reality and go, look, I'm not here to, quash the deal. I'm here to make sure you're protected. Okay. And that's my job. So I can be quick because I know what I'm doing, but we need to do all the checks, all the investigations and all the proper inquiries to make sure that what the vendor's telling you is actually true, is actually accurate and correct, and what they're selling you. And it doesn't take long for those inquiries to be made. So you just have to allow someone like myself who's experienced to look after you when you're buying and selling property, because there, as I said from the beginning, there are so many intricacies and buyers can really get into trouble if they're not represented properly.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Despina. A lovely chat with you again. And if anyone does want to get in touch with you directly, where can they go?
Yes, they can always phone our office, 55291 294. And those people that have reached out to me in the past, they know that I get back to them very quickly. So always happy to take calls, or they can email info@Priala Legal, Priala legal.com.au in relation to their inquiries. And then, as usual, this weekend, I'll upload this segment onto YouTube.
And we'll see you next week.
Great. See you then, guys.